Back to our webinar series. For those of you who have attended before, welcome to the program. For everyone else whose first time it may be. Today we're going to be learning about how Advisor Investments out of Newton, Massachusetts was able to drive 1,000% growth in their financial planning activities. So a lot of exciting stuff to go through today. I want to get some introductions out of the way so we can get going. My name is Jim Finnegan. I am a manager on the advisor sales team at eMoney Advisor. I'm going to be trying to steer our conversation today. The team from Advisor Investments, Jake Lynch, Chief Business Officer, Matt Wiley, Vice President, and Julianne Catlin, our Senior Operations Specialists, have a lot to tell. They have a great story to tell about how they were able to include financial planning throughout their service model, and I've seen a tremendous ripple effect because of it. So we're going to be hearing a lot from them today. So Jake, Matt, Julianne, welcome to the call. Thanks for being with us here today. We certainly appreciate it from the eMoney side. Why don't we kick things off with a little bit about you guys? So Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Advisor Investments?
I founded and now oversee our wealth services department, which includes financial planning and a team of specialists who utilize eMoney. And I'm also in charge of strategic planning and several of the corporate finance functions like M&A and succession.
And my name is Matt Wiley, also good to be here. I'm a vice president here at Advisor Investments. I work on the centralized planning group Jake had mentioned, part of the group that does the planning for our clients, as well as maintaining my own relationships with a number of clients here at the firm.
Hi, Jim. Thanks again for having us. I'm Julianne Catlin. I'm a senior ops specialist here at Advisor. I work a lot of the back-end, back-office pieces of the puzzle. I work a lot with the portal and with the accounts specifically for all of our clients.
Very cool. Awesome. We appreciate that that background. So before we get going, there's just a few housekeeping notes. So this call is being recorded. So if any of you have to jump, prior to our conclusion, you'll be able to catch a replay. We'll be following up. It'll be available on our blog. We also have a Q&A feature. So part of what we try to do here is more of like a fireside chat kind of format. So a lot of that depends on our audience. So we invite all of you, if anything, any questions, thoughts pop in your mind, feel free to throw them in the Q&A feature or in the chat box. We're going to try to get through as many of your questions today. Now, a quick rundown for what we'll be covering and the format so you guys know what's on the road ahead. I'm going to be spending about 5-10 minutes tops sharing some ideas and insights around why it can be a really good thing to build or retune your business around financial planning and how eMoney can help. I'm not so vain as to think you're all here to hear me, so I'll be brief in my commentary. We're going to be spending the bulk of our time hearing from Jake, Matt, and Julianne about how Advisor Investments was able to shift their approach and grow their financial planning activities by 1,000%, and what are some of the wonderful things that have happened because of it. They're going to be helping, add some color to what I'm going to be showing today. And then, as I mentioned, we always want to hear from you, so please use the Q&A feature to submit questions for myself or for the AI team, anything that pops into your mind that you want to explore in a little more detail. Try to get to as many of those as possible. And then finally, to end the call, I'm going to be sharing with you a couple promos we have running here at eMoney that I wouldn't want any of you to miss out on if you're interested, so make sure you stick around for that. So with that, I'm going to get into it. Now, before we can get rolling, just a quick intro to eMoney for anyone who may not know. So eMoney Advisor provides a platform that serves as the backbone for many advisors' planning-led businesses. Now, in order to facilitate this for our clients effectively and efficiently, we have focused really on 4 key areas to help advisors grow and scale. Obviously, with financial planning, that's what we're known for. We provide a suite of planning tools and functionality that can service clients ranging from, ultra high net worth all the way down to millennials who are just starting out. We have tools in the business development arena, so tools that can help you market and communicate and attract new clients, and also stay in touch with your existing clients to boost retention. Access, what do I mean by access? We have integrations with best-in-breed financial technology providers to afford you the ability to simplify your workflow and save you time. And finally, because this is equally important, we have tools that can help you oversee and track key advisor-client interactions to maintain compliance and minimize risk. The bulk of what I'm going to be talking about today is financial planning and how it can add value for clients in your business and what some of those ripple effects could be. So to get into it, why focus on financial planning? I want to introduce you to the advice value stack. This is a concept that was developed by Fidelity that speaks to how we in the financial advice and wealth management business can deliver value. So what this value stack posits is that if you want to provide true lasting value to clients and investors, your firm must move up this stack. So at the bottom we see here, many tech tools and advisors are already accomplishing this today for their clients, but these activities are fast becoming commoditized in our space. What really drives value are these higher order items that help, clients achieve goals, find peace of mind, and ultimately get to the top of this pyramid here and find fulfillment and, leave a legacy. So while your technology purchases often focus on this bottom rung, which is really just overhead, we think a better approach is to stop looking at your tech in this way and instead invest in a solution that helps propel you up this value stack. And the best way we see to do this is with a solid foundation for financial planning. Now, what can you and your clients achieve together by taking an emphasis on financial planning? So you can see on the left here, not only does financial planning help advisors increase AUM and compensation, which in and of itself is a great return. Advisors, according to Sorelli and Associates, advisors who provide financial planning services to their clients have 40% higher AUM and 14% higher compensation. But planning is also what enables clients to achieve their goals. High net worth investors with a financial plan grew their assets 110% more than those who didn't. And ultimately, planning drastically increases client satisfaction. Clients with a formal financial plan are 7 times happier than those without. What could you do? What would that in effect do to your net promoter score? Do you believe, you'd see more referrals? I think the answer would probably be yes. So what kind of client can benefit from the eMoney experience? With the introduction of our foundational planning tool, which is a relatively new tool for us, I can say with conviction that eMoney can benefit clients of all levels of wealth across a broad range of needs. So what we're looking at here is your typical accumulation through distribution years and the types of planning needs associated. Overlaid at the bottom of the chart are the specific tools that eMoney uses to satisfy those client needs. Those needs range from the most basic and automated, like spending and budgeting tools on the client portal, all the way up to the most complex and hands-on. And it's within this spectrum that we find nearly every type of client, from those who are just starting out and need to focus on building their wealth, to those who may require very detailed discussions around business planning or trust creation. And historically, it's been the more advanced end of the spectrum that has seen the most attention. And it's really no, surprise why. These clients then have much higher levels of wealth to even need these sorts of services, so planning for them can be a little more profitable. And while there's nothing wrong with this approach, it does ignore large segments of the market who are yearning for financial planning, who quite frankly have real planning needs, and who most importantly are willing to pay for that advice. So while planning may have traditionally been seen as only being valuable to the investors on the more complex end of the spectrum, because most advisors were seeing it as, overhead for their business, the reality is that the value investors see in planning is growing across the entire spectrum. Research has shown that there is an expected increase in planning across all client segments. So I figured we'd leave off with some of the positive impacts that our clients have seen with eMoney. So I'll be brief in sharing this with you. A survey conducted by a third party asked our clients how much faster they can create a financial plan using eMoney. We found that over 74% of respondents were able to cut their financial plan development time by 25% or more. And even more impressively, over half of the respondents cut their financial plan development time in half or more. So what could you do with the extra time? Obviously, that's up to you. A second question posed within the survey was about how eMoney or its features helped you save time in your day-to-day activities and to be more efficient. Over half of respondents noted that they can more quickly develop and update financial plans. I'd wager a guess that this is due to a myriad of reasons. Account aggregation and client onboarding, which cuts out a majority of data entry activities, integrations with custodians and other fintech providers to streamline getting your own data populated easily, and finally, simplified workflows to actually produce the financial plan. And I actually expect these numbers to increase over time as our foundational planning tool gains more traction within our own user base and with our new customers. And lastly, at the end of the day, we're all here looking to grow our business. 77% of respondents say they saw an improvement in attracting new clients since using eMoney, and even more have seen an improvement in client retention. So obviously, big benefits. Financial planning is a very sticky service, can ripple across your business. Add to your referrals. Now, enough out of me. I know you're all here to listen to the stories that Advisor Investments has for us. So I'm going to invite my friends back to the call. I know you've been waiting patiently in the wings. So Jake, why don't you kick us off with a little bit about Advisor Investments? Give us some background there.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Advisor Investments is an independent fee-only RIA, and as you said before, we're based in Newton, Massachusetts, which is about 15 minutes outside of Boston. The firm was founded in 1994, and it actually was born out of a newsletter business. One of our founders wrote and still writes a newsletter about Vanguard funds, and several of his readers asked that he just manage the money for them. So there was an opportunity to create an RIA, and that's how we got started. Now fast forward to about a week ago, we manage north of $5.6 billion. We have more than 3,800 clients and 85 employees. So there's been quite a bit of growth, and not just organic growth. We've also become a quote-unquote serial acquirer. We've bought $2 billion AUM firms since 2011 and fully integrated them, and we've scaled up our services a great deal. So we're definitely still known for investment management and our expertise on actively managed mutual funds, but we do things ranging from financial planning to family office services now too. So we've broadened out quite a bit.
That's awesome. Well, obviously a lot going on up in Newton, Massachusetts. What I'd like to hear about is a little bit about what the firm's value proposition focused on prior to including more financial planning, more of a financial planning focus. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll take this. This is Matt. I think as Jake mentioned, previously clients primarily came to us for our investment expertise. We were known from our success through the newsletters, managing money, specifically around Vanguard and Fidelity. So that's where initially we began. Planning's definitely been a key part of our process for the past few years before we switched to eMoney, but the difference was the service and the execution really varied by who was actually doing the planning. So clients would have a different experience depending on who their advisor was and which tools were being used.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially in the context of all these, acquisitions happening. I imagine tucking in various firms, would in effect lead to various different client experience happening throughout. So what I want to know a little bit about is what was the impetus around maybe rethinking the firm's approach here to include more financial planning? Was there any catalyst to that? Was it a great idea someone woke up with one day? Can you elaborate a little bit on what the spark was here?
Sure. You hit the nail on the head. It was an acquisition. So our second significant deal closed in 2017, and we bought a firm called Braver Wealth Management. which fortuitously was located less than a mile away from our current office. But Braver's approach to working with clients was quite a bit different than our own, and they really made planning the centerpiece of every relationship. And it was something that impressed us during the courting period and the diligence phase, but then when we started to integrate, we realized how deep their knowledge was when it came to planning, and it's something that we look to leverage for our own advisors. And it's something we've been doing, as Matt said, on particular teams, but it wasn't consistent across the firm. And we now thought we had a partner we could leverage who really knew how to do this well. That was one of their strategic differentiators. And one of the things that we do really well is construct consistent, repeatable processes. So we combined those two capabilities and came up with a centralized planning model. And this, involved many stakeholders across the business, many different departments. We sort of decentralized the ownership, and we also decided it was time to rethink who we were partnering with. And both Braver and Advisor Investments had previously used MoneyGuide Pro, but we decided it was time to look at eMoney again, and ultimately decided to make the change.
Gotcha. So I want to you hinted at something that I think is very interesting here. So when you're when you're creating a centralized planning group, you either, I guess, need to retool folks or hire from the outside. So in order to make this shift, what was the approach you guys took? Did you have to change the mindset of existing advisors to get more planning led and focus on that with clients? Did you add headcount from the outside? Tell me how you went about steering the ship.
We really did both. It started, with a comprehensive business plan, but ultimately it was an internal promotion to create the first specialist. And we selected someone who I think was ideally suited for championing this new service. And once he had started using eMoney, and in particular doing interactive presentations with and for our advisors, it really started to take hold. And we got some quick wins from a few of the advisors, and then word spread that this was really being structured well and clients were getting a lot out of it. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew, and got to a point where it was so clear that demand was outstripping our capacity to supply and present plans, so we started making external hires to grow.
Gotcha. That's definitely an interesting approach and something I can appreciate. So one thing I want to, now obviously you're bringing in these firms, you're now taking a different approach to, your client conversations. What challenges were you guys facing with your existing technology? Obviously, somewhat of a different focus, may require different tools, retooling advisors. What did that look like?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was previously we were really using multiple vendors to try and accomplish most of what we were trying to do, between portal, between planning, our own CRM system, and there wasn't a lot of interaction between each of those. So the client experience, it also varied, again, depending on the type of planning that was being done and which team was doing it. So Jake touched upon it earlier, but I think one of the big strengths of the firm is we do a lot of things centralized. So consistency is definitely key here at the firm, whether that be one consistent investment message, one consistent marketing theme, one consistent client experience. So everywhere from our client service team to the sales team dealing with clients, you want to make sure that experience is there, and that was what was lacking on the planning front. So the challenge was, how do we find something that can be repeatable and allow us to really deliver in the same way?
Now, to dig a little deeper, so you mentioned, you kind of had these scattered, siloed, different technology options available for your advisors. Now, obviously, I'm a big believer in the carrot versus the stick. So how did you get that? How did you get that technology to stick and get them to actually, start putting it to practice? What did that look like? The motivation behind, getting folks into a different mindset. Do you internal training, some sort of incentive program?
Sure. So I can speak to that. This is Julianne. We had a couple of different approaches to that. We wanted to, once the technology was somewhat in place, we had both the planning aspects of everything as well as the portal capabilities. So for anyone who was going to get a financial plan, the centralized planning group would reach out. They did presentations with the clients, and as Jake touched on, as we did more and more of those, the relationship managers got more and more comfortable with that, and then started talking to more more clients about how these plans could be well utilized, and that they were really a good tool and a great thing that the company could now offer. And then we also had the portal aspect where we wanted all of our clients to know that we had this technology. We had to convert from our previous portal as well, so that was the first hurdle, get everyone set up, get them their new credentials, and then we wanted to make sure that all of our clients knew we had joined the 21st century and that they could now access all of their accounts electronically. And then for people who hadn't had planning before, we wanted to also make sure that they sort of came into the fold. And one of the ways that we did that was to use a life event for clients to get them sort of into the planning process. They had their first grandkid. They want to know how much money they can put in a trust for them. They had, got married, got divorced, inherited a bunch of money. Those types of things were great sort of springboards into using this new technology.
Yeah, that makes a lot of – so one of the things, from a sales perspective at eMoney, one thing I found a lot of was, advisors who really wanted to get into financial planning. They see where the industry is going. They want to get there. They just have questions about how, after 20, 30 years of working with my current clients, do I sell them on the idea of a financial plan, gracefully? It's obviously more involved than just in your next meeting with the client saying, hey, I want to do a financial plan. You may get a funny look like, well, what have we been doing all these years if it wasn't planning? So it can be kind of an awkward thing to go back to your existing clients. So if you wouldn't mind just taking us through that process a bit. So obviously, net new clients to the firm don't know any different. This is what you get as part of, the services with AI. Existing clients, it's a shift. So could you take us take us through how the firm navigated those sorts of conversations? Obviously, life change event is a great opportunity to introduce the idea of planning because things are different now. But did you approach that any differently for clients who, maybe we had an eye towards retention? I don't want some other advisor approaching my client with this, idea of doing a full-blown financial plan. What did that look like, if you could take us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take that one, just being someone who deals with clients and had those exact conversations. I mean, I think as a firm, we really took the approach of introducing this almost as a new service offered. So a value add for existing clients and new clients as part of the services we provided. So in some ways it was a big rollout just to introduce the new capabilities, because you're correct. A lot of the conversations we have with clients, even though we're just mainly focusing on investments, does touch on different planning aspects. But until this point, we really hadn't formalized that in this eMoney type approach that we use now. What really got things rolling was when you saw the success for individuals who started using that process, having these more in-depth conversations, generating referrals, generating upsells, and additional share of wallet. I think that really turned the tide. So one of the questions you asked earlier, what did you do to get everybody on board? I think it was just naturally seeing success other advisors were having. By using the central group and going through this planning process, that just naturally pushed everyone on board.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, obviously, if it's working for the guy down the hall and he's starting to blow it out, then he must be doing something right. I should probably talk to him. Perfect sense to me. Well, one thing, so we've mainly been talking about financial planning in the context of current clients and how we could get them on board with this idea. A question I have for you, and maybe some of the audience are thinking some of the same, but do you do financial plans for your prospects, or do you wait until they're fully engaged with the firm? Because I've heard it both ways, so I'm just curious as to which approach you guys take, and if you do you charge them for it? What does that look like?
Yeah, each situation can be a little bit different. I would say on the whole, we typically wait until a client is on board, just so that we know the time spent developing an entire plan makes sense from our end as well. Obviously, there's a cost of time that we deal with. But I think what's really neat, I mean, going through these processes, what we're seeing and what we're hearing from clients is everyone's excited to actually do this, where we're getting a lot of, hey, one, I didn't realize you had this capability, but two, this would be perfect for my kids, or we were just chatting over dinner last night with my friends, and they should really talk to you because I don't think they've ever done something like this and seen it. So we are sometimes, with those types of introductions, at least introducing the idea of planning before a client would come on board. But I would say for the most part, we do want to have that relationship established before we put the time in.
It makes tons of sense. Yeah, like I've said, I've seen it both ways as, a way to land a client, move the money over, lead with a, financial plan. No right way to go about it. It all depends on the situation. So you mentioned something in there that I think everyone's curious about because they see the 1,000% growth. They want to know, what does that translate to? So when you're setting out on an endeavor like this, shifting our value prop a bit and retooling, retraining advisors to take a little bit of a different approach, I'm curious about the metrics that you guys use to measure your success. Was it growth in AUM, referral channel growth, upsells to existing clients, maybe a blend of everything? How did the firm decide that this, we're starting to see a return on our investment?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one, Jim. So I oversee analytics for the company, so we spend a lot of time thinking about how to measure this in a reasonable way, because we were investing time and resources, so we want to make sure that it's providing a return. So the first thing is we established a one-year goal of 350 comprehensive financial plans in eMoney. And when we initially set that goal, I think it was sort of a pipe dream, something we didn't necessarily think that we were going to hit. But then demand really picked up, and we had the opportunity to bring in some outside hires. And we ended up just sort of squeaking by it by 6 plans. So in year one, we produced 356 plans in eMoney, which was, to the eye-catching title of our white paper and this webinar, tremendous growth over what we had been producing on an annual basis previously. So that's number one, is just tracking how much production you're achieving. And I would note, I referenced how many clients we have earlier, but that's just shy of 10% of our clients. So achieving that kind of penetration in a single year for a new service is really remarkable. And I think that speaks to, first, the centralized approach that we took, and secondly, how scalable the technology is across an enterprise. So another important metric, perhaps the most important, was establishing a standardized post-plan survey for clients. And this is a way to get their feedback on the entire planning experience, how well it went, how much work was required on their end, how helpful it was to receive the plan and get our recommendations, and how well the software worked for them. So that became a requirement of the planning process, is getting that feedback. And then lastly, the big one was establishing our own sort of unique measure of ROI. And I'm seeing some of the comments here. I've tried to measure ROI in a variety of different kinds of business initiatives and all different sorts of businesses, and it's always something that is very difficult to do because you can't prove causality. So what we ultimately arrived at was 2 different metrics that we used, and the first is what I call related inflows. So this is money that came into our firm, either additional deposits, new accounts, or entirely new relationships from people who receive plans. We're not necessarily saying the plan is what caused this to happen, but it was related. And the second one is attributable inflows. So it's the same metric, any kind of new money coming into the firm. But in this case, it came in within a defined period of receiving the plan, and either the advisor or the client attributes the business to the plan. So that related inflow number for the plans that we delivered in that first year got close to $100 million, if not exceeded it. It probably has exceeded it at this point. And the attributable was in the range of $50 million. And again, we can't prove that that money came here, but we believe that planning was a really big part of why it came.
Yeah, very, very cool. Sounds like you're in the green then. That's nice to see. So we're getting a lot of questions in here, and it was actually one of the things I wanted to learn about. Like, if you have a separate financial planning engagement, or if you tuck the financial planning services in with your, asset management fees. There's a lot of questions coming in about your fee model when it comes to planning. So maybe you can help our audience, give them some ideas as to how you charge for services.
Sure. This is a source of controversy internally and in the industry is, do you charge for planning? We have debated it endlessly here. And for existing clients, we have not. We have made it part of the existing agreement that they have with us. Planning is a service that they pay for through their existing fee schedule. And we think of basis points that they pay us as a proxy for all of the services that we can bring to them, and that includes planning.
Gotcha. Well, I hope that clears some things up, gives some folks out there some ideas. So one thing I think what I'm looking for, somewhat selfishly, because I am selling eMoney, just to hear from you guys. So a firm who, maybe has one foot in the door, one foot out when it comes to, kind of retuning their client experience to include planning, and maybe doesn't know exactly where to start. Could you take us through what your recommendations would be if you were in their shoes, and maybe you have some obviously real life experiences to share? Like where did the firm start when we said, all right, we want to commit to this? What are our first couple steps looking like?
Sure, I can speak to that. So one of the first things that we did, and we have touched upon it a little bit, is to create that centralized planning group. It made it less onerous for the company as a whole when you had a planning group that was going to specialize in this new software. It sort of took the monster of learning a new technology and centralized it, rather than making all 85 members of the company have to learn it all at once. We knew we would have this centralized group who would be basically the subject matter experts and be able to sort of leverage that so that it could then trickle out to the rest of the company. That centralized group was able to focus their time and learn it really well, give well-presented plans, rather than people trying to piecemeal from their old softwares to the new software and piece it all together. So they had sort of experts to lean on in that case, and that definitely helped the adoption and the accuracy, and again, the consistency throughout the firm. We had certified planners that were able to adopt the technology, learn it really well, and leverage it for all of our salespeople. And then the second portion of that is that we set up these groups, really one group, that was someone from each department in the company to sort of share experiences as we used eMoney from all of our different angles, to make sure that we were sharing best practices amongst the planners, amongst the back office, people like myself, make sure that there's not any disconnect in client feedback getting all the way back to me in the back office, make sure that we're having a consistent experience across all of the people in that centralized group, and be able to sort of tackle it all together rather than on islands.
No, that makes sense. And yeah, some part of what we preach at eMoney is that, you really want to have the buy-in of your firm. Make sure that the folks that are in there every day get licensed and can go through our training so they can obviously master the program. Everyone else who is involved telling the story, learn enough to be dangerous and be able to demonstrate and know what you're talking about and really convey the value. And part of what we try to promote is getting, and I'm curious to see if you guys took this same approach, getting all of the internal stakeholders, anyone who's working with clients, working with eMoney, getting themselves on the system. Put yourself on as a client, do a financial plan for yourself, load up your stuff in the vault for, if any life change events happens, it's there safe and secure. So I'm curious, did you guys employ that same sort of technique where, in order for us to really go out and tell this story, planning, client portal, we should put ourselves through it? I'm just curious to see if, that was something that you guys took on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was probably the most helpful way to learn the ins and outs, right? Because, in addition, eMoney did a great job. We had on-site training. I think we actually had 2 visits from the team just to come out, introduce the product, with a special group of people as well, just to go in depth in terms of what we'd be using it for. But then when you talk about having the rest of the company kind of get behind the service, having them put their own information, understand what are the issues or questions that they're running into so that they can help get some familiarity before you introduce this to a client, that's huge. So knowing how the tool works, like with most things, I think if you have that experience beforehand, you can better describe it. You can help better troubleshoot. And you can just give the client the better experience when they're going through it for the first time, because you can help address a lot of that. As Julian mentioned too, just that centralized approach of having this ongoing group that meets to figure out what are some of those best practices that we want to share with the firm. Investments team coming in to make sure that the inputs we're building for the model portfolios that we're using with our software here, those are all the same, so that every client, going back to that consistency is quality, every client has that same experience when they're going through a plan.
Awesome. And I want to start to wrap things up, but there's just one other thing, maybe a couple questions I have just to tap your brains collectively. Obviously there's a ton of talk in the industry about working with millennials. Like, how do we work with them in a capacity that, is conducive of a long-term relationship, but that is possibly not very profitable for me early on. We see all the reports and statistics about millennials having more wealth than baby boomers by, 2030. And, as Wayne Gretzky would say, you got to skate to where the puck is going to be. So I'm curious as to your approach, because you mentioned it earlier on about working with younger clients, and, you're good existing clients a lot of the time saying this would be great for my kids. What's your approach in working with the next generation of investors? I've heard a whole bunch of stuff. I've heard, new RIAs popping up just to target that, demographic under a different brand. I've heard of, new service models being introduced, maybe like a subscription-based model. It's kind of all over the place. So I'm just curious as to how you guys go about working with younger clients, if at all. Is that not a huge priority for the firm right now? Just curious.
It is a priority. I think it should be a priority for everyone in this industry, because it's going to be critical to capture those younger investors as wealth transitions. So it's something that we're discussing, researching, we're testing some concepts. We aspire to craft and tweak a different sort of planning experience for the millennial that's more suited to their specific needs. But it's going to be an ongoing process. We don't have the answer yet.
No, I hear you there. I mean, I think we're in a good spot where you can probably test a lot of things and see what's working and really hone your craft there and working with these millennials we keep hearing about, those damn millennials. So I want to try to bring things to a tidy close. So hopefully this question's on the table. So and what we try to do at eMoney is help advisors deal with change. The big thing we're seeing now is advisors who want to get into planning. Maybe they do planning today, but they see it as overhead, and help them transition it to a real revenue driver for their business. Build a scalable and repeatable process so you can really make money using financial planning. We've heard about how you guys were able to deploy that. I'm just curious if you want to enlighten me, enlighten the audience. I know you don't want to give away all your secrets, but what's in the works or what's on the horizon in terms of change management for AI? Or are you going to keep plugging away on planning because it's not there yet? But just where's your head at in terms of change management going forward? What are the big things you're seeing?
Yeah, I think planning is definitely still in a stage of rapid expansion. We have critical mass at this point, but we want to get penetration much higher than where it is right now. We'd love to get financial plans to every single one of our 3,800 plus clients if they want them and it would be useful. So we're definitely continuing to push on the execution front with planning. We've, as of this year, merged, and I sort of referenced this earlier, merged financial planning with our family office team into a combined wealth services group, which really is kind of building upon this idea of a specialist model, having a team of professionals that can work with our advisors and the end client to provide some services that perhaps are a bit more time intensive and require a deeper level of expertise.
Awesome. We appreciate that. And I think we've gotten through most of the audience questions. We're about 45 minutes in, and I promised you we'd run no longer than an hour, probably closer to 45 minutes. So with that, is there anything else you guys want to share with us today before I just make a couple announcements on some promos we're doing over here?
No, it's thanks for the opportunity. We enjoyed it.
No, awesome. Yeah, I couldn't thank you guys enough for jumping in here. Really do appreciate having you guys as a client, as a partner of ours. Two things that I want to run through. So, there's a lot of questions. There was a question in particular about, obviously we're hearing about how this was deployed at a pretty large scale with a larger firm. How can I relate that to maybe my business, which is not at the point where we have that many employees? How can it be deployed at possibly a smaller scale? I want to invite anyone who's interested, talk to one of our sales reps. If you're thinking about joining, on with a financial planning software, you got to think of who you're partnering with behind the scenes. Talk to our team. Just hear their story, how we've helped other advisors who are similar to you. We have a lot of knowledgeable folks on the floor who can help you kind of see the future, see if eMoney is a good partner, good fit for your firm. We're happening to run some promos right now, so now's a good time. Summertime, people are at the beach. Sometimes price gets discounted a little bit. You never know. So if the feeling moves you, feel free to visit our website. Pop into the free trial form. A sales rep will reach out to learn about your business and get you set up. The other announcement I have, and I'm not going to let the AI team off the hook quite yet, is that we have a summit coming up. So October 14th through the 16th, we are hosting our annual summit in Austin, Texas. I'm very excited about that. I hear nothing but good things about Austin. So I'm going to be in attendance. So you get to meet me face to face if you guys are to show up. As a potential motivator to do so, we are reopening an early bird special for those who have attended the webinar today. So there is a coupon. The coupon to get the early bird pricing of $999 is my last name, and that's Finnegan, EGAN. That's Finnegan with one N. We lost an N on the boat over from Ireland at some point way back. So Finnegan with one N, that'll get you the early bird pricing. What can you expect from the summit? So there's a ton of opportunities to grow professionally. You'll have the opportunity to network with like-minded peers. I'm sure there's going to be a few folks from AI that you guys can connect with, hear more about their story, hear from industry thought leaders. There's an opportunity to earn CE credits included there. There's practice management and technology adoption symposiums. And if I'm not mistaken, we originally hooked up with you guys at the summit a couple years ago before you even became clients. Is that correct? Am my history good?
That is correct. Yeah, 2 years ago, we sent a few people down to the summit to learn about eMoney, and last year we, I think, doubled the number of people that went, and this year we will be there once again.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. So again, if the feeling moves you, if you want to come learn, hear from industry leading keynote speakers, tack on some CE credits, get the most out of eMoney. I think that honestly the best thing you can do at one of these things is connect with folks and share ideas. That's really what we're all about. And also you'll have a direct line to our product team. So if you have this genius idea that you've been keeping in your mind and you want to tell someone about it, you guys should build this next. There will be a direct line to our product team. They'll all be there listening to our clients, to our prospects, and we see a lot of cool things come to fruition because of it. So great opportunity to learn from peers, to learn from product leading or industry leading experts at the eMoney Summit. Again, if you want to get a little bit of a price cut there, throw in my last name, Finnegan, F-I-N-E-G-A-N. And with that, I promise not to keep you guys any longer than needed. I want to thank all of our attendees. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to visit with us. I hope everyone was able to learn something today. And if you're listening later tonight from your sofa, I appreciate you taking time away from your family to listen to me. And with that, I'm going to shut up now. So thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your Wednesday, and a big thanks to the AI team for hopping on with me and sharing their experience. Have a good one.
Thanks for having us.